still waiting on Kawhi out here, Teddy. But yet another month, another Major League home run record has been broken. Let's get right to the hot topics. We're all waiting for Kawhi, and the odds are due to shift once we get an actual decision from Kawhi Leonard, who we're seeing reports he's going to choose the Clippers. Oh, no, he canceled the Clippers. He's going to choose the Lakers. Oh, my goodness, he hasn't met with them yet. He's going to stay in Toronto all along. Teddy, what's going on out here in the field?
Well, the answer is, from a betting market standpoint, frankly, nobody has any idea. So what you're seeing is a lot of bets here in Vegas in the future market, and they're betting basically on steam, on air, on maybe he's going to go here, maybe he's going to go there. Where Kawhi lands will most assuredly affect the future book odds. There's no question about it, and he is the biggest name remaining. That being said, there are a couple of teams that I think have been really overlooked in terms of what they've done in recent weeks. It made them real. Look at Indiana right now. Indiana looks really good. You know, you bring in T.J. Warren, you bring in Malcolm Brogdon, you got Oladipo coming back, Miles Turner developing into a star. The Pacers, to me, look like a scary team in the East. No one's talking about Indiana. They're not taking up on a bunch of future book money. Same story in the West with a team like Utah. You know, when you get Mike Conley to go along with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, guess what? You got a big three. Then you add Bogdanovich and Ed Davis over the weekend. That's huge ads. Utah's very live in the West, and they're not being looked at yet in the betting markets as contenders. So that's two teams, in my opinion, two smaller market squads that you're looking for futures. You want to get some money down now? Maybe take a look at the Jazz or the Pacers. They've made appropriate moves, even though they haven't garnered the headlines here in the first part of NBA free agency.
Teddy, you make a pretty good point there, because most times when we're looking at, where's Kawhi going to go, people are betting saying, all right, well, if he goes to the Lakers, yep, they're going to be the odds-on favorite to win the NBA championship. What happens if he goes to the Clippers, if you jump the gun before he goes there to try to beat the odds, and also if he stays back home in Toronto? But you bring up a good point when you're talking about Indiana in the East and you're talking about, maybe the Utah Jazz in the West, because if Kawhi Leonard chooses the Los Angeles Lakers, those odds might get a little bit steeper there for the Utah Jazz, and vice versa back in East, because if he chooses to go out West, Kawhi Leonard, then you're looking at Indiana maybe in more of a clear path to possibly get to the NBA Finals. From a futures perspective, talking about it, instead of looking maybe those top teams, can you find a little bit better odds, maybe a little bit better pricing if you can get those teams that are faced against Kawhi if he chooses the other conference?
Yes, but you'll have to wait for him to choose the other conference in order to make those bets to theoretically get better odds. And I'll be honest, at this stage of the NBA offseason, books are really quick to adjust lines down once teams start taking money. They're not quite as quick to adjust them up for the teams that aren't taking money. So I would bet it sooner rather than later if you like the futures for either of those two teams. I'm not convinced that the markets have caught up with where they are right now, and that type of discrepancy won't last forever. So when you see a team like the Pacers or the Jazz that have that potential, you want to get a future book wager down, now's the time to do it, earlier rather than later.
Yep, and we'll probably have these answers over the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll keep you updated right here on that betting show at sportsbookreview.com. But let's get into Monday's baseball card. It wasn't a deep card, Teddy, but boy, they sure got after it with scoring. Started with Canada Day, and as we like to point out on the show, Teddy, when you open up and let the elements get in there, let that heat and humidity get in. It certainly was on display in Canada as we had an 11 spot for the Blue Jays, an 11-4 win. The Pirates, how about this, Teddy? I like to hit on some team totals every once in a while. That divisional rivalry between the Milwaukee Bucks and Pittsburgh over the past 3 games, not much went on there. And then, they step back outside, Teddy, and notch 18 runs in the very next game. A day late and $1 short for me on those, but also the Giants in a hitter's-friendly ballpark, not so much. Pitchers love to pitch at Petco. 13 spot for the Giants offense. Craziness.
Yeah, and that was one that got me, unfortunately. I didn't see the Giants doing that. That Brewers-Reds game is worth talking about. The first 5 stays under, so 1-0 game after 5, and then it ends up being 8-6. Cincy has been the exception. This has been an over season in MLB. There are a handful of teams that have significant over biases. There's one team in MLB, and really the only one that has, this probably might be a second, but Cincy, the strongest under bias in all of baseball. They've been the number 1 under team by margin. How do you get to be the number 1 under team? Well, your starting pitching's got to be good, your bullpen's got to be good, and your lineup's got to be cold. 2 of those 3 remain in place for Cincinnati. Their starting pitching's still pretty good, their lineup's still pretty cold. But the bullpen for the Reds, which has been so good, hasn't been good over the last week or so. That's a big problem for underbettors in Cincinnati. and it's a big problem for the Reds moving forward.
Yep, full slate in Major League Baseball. We'll attack that a little bit later on this show. But let's get to a little bit of football, Ted. As we said, it's already in July. We're moving forward. Next month, Teddy, you will have live game action for college football. Today's Top 20 College Football Preview on that betting show going to be the Penn State Nittany Lions. Set up this year, Teddy, 66-1 to win the NCAA title. Nittany Lions team total is set at 8.5 minus 145. Last year, Penn State finished 9-4 and 6-3 in Big Ten play. James Franklin comes into another season. You're losing your quarterback who you knew was going to be there game in, game out, dual threat, and Trace McSorley over the past 3 years. He's gone. You thought you had that figured out, Teddy, and yet you have a transfer over. So now you're looking at a sophomore quarterback and a freshman quarterback to try to compete and lead your team into Big Ten play. Also very young at wide receiver as well for the Penn State team. The one thing that we like is they always have a nice home field advantage. And if you have a young team trying to break in a new quarterback, Teddy, what's the best way to do that? Open up with some home games. They're going to open up the slate with Idaho, Buffalo, and Pittsburgh. Hope to jump out to a 3-0 start. The Penn State Nittany Lions, Teddy, today's team on that betting show.
Yeah, and from a pure talent perspective, James Franklin is putting something together in Happy Valley. This team has had 3 consecutive recruiting classes ranked among the top dozen in college football. There's talent, no question, plenty of talent, but there are also significant graduation losses, particularly on the offensive side of the football. You talked about McSorley, and now they have to replace McSorley. And look, they'll be able to do that, but, 5 starters left early, underclassmen for the NFL draft. 11 different players entered the transfer portal. So that's a lot of attrition for one off season. James Franklin, quote, "We've got a lot of question marks, obviously, with some of the guys we've lost. But I also think there's a lot of excitement for the upcoming season." I don't disagree with that. Tommy Stevens looks like he's going to be the guy. He's got a total of 7 career passes so far at QB. Offensive line has 3 returning starters. That's probably a good sign. But when it comes to skill position talent, when it comes to breaking in the new QB, when it comes to potentially a redshirt freshman at left tackle to open the season, I'm not convinced this offense is going to be putting up points in bunches, at least out of the gate. On the defense side of the football, look, this squad looks really good. With the coordinator, Brent Pry, brings the heat. Last year, Penn State led FBS in sacks, 4th in tackles for loss per game, and big returns on the defensive side of the football. When you get Gross Matos back and Robert Windsor back, veterans in the secondary, strong in the safety position. This defense looks pretty good. They're going to be able to rush the passer. They're going to be able to defend the pass. And I don't see teams putting up points in bunches on Penn State. Given their offensive growing pains, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Penn State plays in more than their fair share of low-scoring games early in the season. I'm looking to bet the Nittany Lions under the total on a week-in, week-out basis as they try to get this offense up to speed.
Yep, Teddy. And we always remember as gamblers some of the bad beats or crazy games that we had. I remember a game last year dipping in early in the season of college football, Teddy. I was on Illinois plus 28 at home on a Friday night versus Penn State and had the lead in the third quarter, Teddy, and I wasn't able to cover. How about that, kid? Did you have that game, Teddy? Because I'm already getting nightmares talking about Penn State.
I did. That was Illinois. That wasn't Penn State. Although Penn State played really well, but the Illini could not take a punch very well last year. That was a game that showed it for everyone to see. Yeah, that was fun. Thanks for bringing up memory. I appreciate it.
It was a lot of fun there. Miles Sanders running wild and late hits in that game. But look at that. See, even on a live show here, we can just get after it and get upset about previous bets that we had, so we keep an eye on college football. We'll get you guys ready for opening day in college football. Segment number 2, overnight line movers. Where's the best place in the industry to get those overnight line moves? Of course, it's SBRodds.com. Here's one that's changing here. A Subway Series in New York City with the Mets getting some money. Yankees open up around 160, dips to about 145. Taking a look at SBRodds.com right now. And we're seeing some 140s across the board. Mets plus 131, total of 9. Paxton versus Wheeler.
Yeah, and of course the markets are moving here. They want to be betting on Wheeler, and they don't love Paxton. Paxton's not getting the ground ball outs this year. There have been times that he's taken a ton of wise guy support. This season's advanced metrics, not one of those times. Meanwhile, Wheeler, he's got a 304 BABIP, batting average on balls in play, which is high, and a 67% strand rate, which means when guys gets on base, they're scoring against him. That's low. That means his xFIP, is fielding independent pitching adjusted, is lower than his ERA. And when a pitcher's xFIP is lower than his ERA, they tend to take money. That's why the markets are betting the Mets today. Plain and simple. They like Wheeler. They don't like Paxton.
Braves and Phillies going to tee it up today. Obviously, the Braves have a first-game lead by about 5 games in the NL East. Second time around, right through, just in Atlanta. Now coming back before the Phillies do head home. They're going to hit Atlanta again. Braves open up around 130, drop to around 120. Now we're sitting around pick'ems, but a lot of things have to do because Aaron Nola has now been placed in as the starter going against Dallas Keuchel. Nola back in the form. Keuchel looking to regain his form. Should be a good one down in Atlanta tonight, Teddy.
Yeah, and the markets aren't sold on Keuchel. We've seen that already, and his first 2 starts have been spotty. Let's just put it that way. Whereas Nola's last 2 starts have been completely dominant. 7 and 8 innings, so 15 combined innings, 1 earned run allowed, 20 strikeouts, 21 ground ball outs, only 2 walks, only 12 fly ball outs during that span. So those are the type of numbers that betting markets definitely pay attention to. All that being said, the Braves hit him hard 3 starts ago, prior to these last 2 dominant efforts. And you want to talk about a weird home road dichotomy. Nola wasn't this pitcher earlier in his career. This year, a 2.85 ERA at home in 11 starts. In 6 road starts, his ERA is over 7. The markets are saying that's an aberration, not a trendsetter. And then obviously expecting good things from Nola today with the money coming on Philadelphia.
How about this one, Teddy? Taking a look at elevation if it's already bad. If you have a guy named Urquidy that's going to get the start for the Houston Astros. And, oh, yeah, let's not forget, winds blowing out over double digits in Coors. So we have a posted total here of 13. Astros-Rockies, with the Rockies actually favored at -129 with German Marquez on the mound. But, hey, it looks like we're going to get some batters. We're going to get some pitchers that were questionable, and we're going to get some good hitting conditions. 13 on the board, Teddy, in Colorado today.
Well, what do we got? We have 7 all-star batters between these 2 teams. You know, Bregman, Springer, Brantley for Houston. We have Dahl, Story, who's going to be back in the lineup for the Rockies this weekend. Blackman and Arenado for Colorado. Those are a lot of big bets. But the key issue with the 13 here, with Marquez on the hill, who's the Rockies' ace, look at the current homestand. 4 games. 20 runs, 22, 8, and 15. Their last homestand, 27, 22, 28, 15, 12, 13, 11. Hard to be betting unders in Coors right now. And the market's saying that very clearly, regardless of the starting pitching matchup, regardless of the Rockies' ace being on the hill, the ball is carrying game in, game out. And when you're getting what? Routinely 15, 20, 25 runs in these games, yeah, 13s are warranted at Coors at this stage of the campaign.